Welcome to the Butterfly Tribe, where independent minds gather and sovereign voices are heard. This is a space where truth is not silenced, perspectives are valued, and every voice matters. Free from judgment, free from stigma, united through awareness. Welcome home, Butterfly. We've been expecting you.
So I told her, I said, well, I woke up to an eviction notice, and then about an hour later, I get a call from the doctor's office letting me know that my biopsy's back and that he can't tell me over the phone. So I go in and I get a cancer diagnosis and I have no medical insurance. And then my car blew up on the Katy freeway and is still sitting there smoldering on the side of the road. And as soon as his hands were approaching me and coming to the side of my head, I felt like I went from 0 to 1,000,000 miles an hour. A wealth of knowledge, a endless artesian spring wealth of knowledge that I did not know before that encounter.
These demonic forces, they're really scared of Jesus. Like I said, I'm not religious, but it works. Welcome to another episode of Tribe Radio, the native podcast of the Butterfly Tribe. This world is ruled by Satan, a realm of fear, manipulation, division, chaos, endless consumption, and survival. And like the all-consuming caterpillar trapped in a cult-like cocoon of conditioning, many people believe this material dimension is the only reality that exists. But what many are beginning to realize is that there are other realms of consciousness beyond the matrix of fear and control. Realms that Satan and his demons cannot reach. Like the butterfly, we learn to operate from a higher state of awareness. My brother Ruben calls it the realm of reason. I like to refer to it as the kingdom of heaven, a state of sovereignty where the soul aligns with truth, integrity, and God. From that alignment, life begins to respond differently. Synchronicities happen, doors open. The right people cross our path at the right time. And that is exactly how today's conversation came together. I'm honored to welcome Kay Miller, a sovereign voice from Houston, Texas. Kay has spent many years walking this path, and today she joins us to share her journey, her practical wisdom, and her understanding of how we can begin creating the life we know deep down we were always meant to live. Kay, welcome to the tribe.
Thank you, Robin. I'm so glad to be here. It's really a privilege, and I just really admire your work, your insight, your wisdom, and we're on the same page. I mentioned to Robin before this taping that it was like finding another spotted zebra in the jungle. It's rare.
Yeah, we do live in a jungle, that's for sure. Yeah, or a spotted butterfly. So
Right, right.
what time is it there in Houston, Texas?
It is 9:30 right now,
9:30,
a.m.
okay. AM, yeah. So you already had your cup of coffee?
I'm still in process. I'll take another sip right now.
Okay. Well, here it's 10:30. I'm in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia right now, in the belly of the beast, in the center of town. But it's still a magical environment. People are very different from Europe in this on this part of the world. Yeah.
In Malaysia, are they primarily Christian, Buddhist, combination, melting pot?
So we have a lot of Buddhists, but most people are Muslim here.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting that God put you there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But still, they resonate with what I talk about. They're very respectful people, very open-minded,
Looking
and
for truth.
sorry.
Looking for truth.
Oh yes, yeah, sure. But that's what I see a lot. Like people who are connected with whatever doctrine of God, uh, are mostly open-minded and respectful. But I don't have a religious framework, as you know. Um, and I know you don't really have that either. Is that correct?
I left the chicken coop in 1984 and started soaring with Jesus. You know, it's in his truth, his
Yeah,
teaching.
because you met Jesus, right? Maybe you want to tell me more about the story you've told me a couple of days ago. I was completely stunned. We talked for 2.5 hours, um, and I expect we can do that again.
Well, I'll tell you about my really bad day. Um, I had taken in my mother. She had a blockage in her carotid artery. They thought it caused brain damage. And 1 minute she'd be fine, carrying on a normal conversation. And then the next minute she would be disoriented, confused, almost like she was having a psychotic break, but that's not what was happening. And it would take sometimes a few minutes to 2 days for her to come back into focus. So she could not live by herself. She had been living with her parents in West Texas, and I had just moved to Houston. I had just left a very bad relationship, an alcoholic situation, a narcissist. So I can do narcissists with the best of them. I know all about that. And I ended up getting a little apartment in a job at a hairstyling salon, a real high end hair salon. I was a master stylist, and I was working there. And one morning I woke up really early, unusually early, and I didn't know why I was awake, and I was wide awake. And I knew that something was wrong with my mother. I didn't know how I knew, but I knew that something was wrong. And so as I was laying there thinking about my mom, I heard her call my name. And that was the first time anything like that had ever happened for me. I literally heard her voice in the atmosphere call my name. And so that startled me. And I thought I laid there for a little bit more. And I knew that they were probably up early because we all got up early. We were from the farm. And I thought, well, I'm gonna go call and see if everything's okay. Before my hand touched the phone, it rang early in the morning. I picked it up. I didn't even say hello. I said, Mother, what's wrong? And she said, I'd rather be dead than live like this. The next words out of my mouth were, get on the next airplane. You're moving in with me. Now, she had to be watched 24/7. Couldn't leave her alone because she could do things that could harm herself or escape or be confused and get out of the house and not know where, wander off. So I took a leave of absence from my job, and I thought, everything's going to work out. We'll figure it out. And months went by, and I was getting more and more depressed. We were eating, you know, I guess budget groceries, and I was gaining weight, and I wasn't able to work out because I couldn't leave the house. And mother was just so depressed. And it was so hard to be around her in that depressed state because nothing I could do, nothing I could say seemed to cheer her up. And so, anyway, I started having these negative thoughts. And I'd always been this Pollyanna, positive girl, this I can conquer the world, I could do anything. And I bought my first business in home when I was 19. I bought a hairstyling salon and ran it successfully for years till
Oh,
I
that's
met
early. Yeah.
Mr. Narcissist who ruined my day. But didn't know anything about them till him, and now I know all about them. But um, so I was always successful, always had a good life, and until the bad relationship. But I broke it off pretty quick, sold the business, moved to Houston. Now my thoughts were spiraling down. I was thinking, oh my gosh, we're not able to eat healthy food. I have to live on a budget. We don't have any money. We're going to run out of money. We're going to be living on the street. Where will I blow dry my hair? I don't know how to be homeless. I've never been homeless before. I don't know what that's about, and I don't want to find out. And so I'm starting to panic. But these thoughts were just continual. It wasn't that I would think it and then I would get my mind off of it. No, no, I was spiraling. And I would look in the mirror and go, oh my gosh, I'm getting so fat. Pretty soon I'm not going to be able to wear any of my clothes. Mother smoked incessantly. She was a chain smoker. She would light the cigarette. She was getting ready to smoke off the one she was still smoking.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it was a one bedroom apartment. Everything was getting yellow in there. I smelled everything I had, smelled like cigarettes. My sofa, I slept on the sofa. She got the bedroom. It was a one bedroom, and I let her have the bedroom. And everything smelled like smoke, and it was just spiraling down. And I thought every time she lit up a cigarette, I had a little thought. She'll probably live forever, and I'll be the one that dies of cancer from secondhand smoke. So I was thinking I was going to run out of money. We're going to be homeless. My car I wasn't uh, able to really spend the money to maintain it, get the oil changes, get it serviced. And it had started making a noise, but I didn't know what that noise was. I just turned up the radio. And so I didn't hear the noise. And white smoke started coming out the tailpipe. And people were coming up beside me like, there's something wrong with that point at your car, like, there's something wrong with your car. And I thought, I know that. I can't do anything about it right now. So I was thinking, oh gosh, the car is going to break down. I'm not going to have any money. I'm going to be super fat. I'm not going to have any clothes to wear. And I'm still going to have a sick mother to take care of. What am I going to do?
That's a lot to take in at that age.
And so that brought me to the worst day of my life. I woke up on the sofa to the sound of mother lighting another cigarette with her little um, zappy lighter, the little silver ones, lighting another cigarette. I thought, oh, she's up. Here comes the cigarette smoke. And I looked up and I saw a shadow on the back of the French doors that opened onto the pool. It was a very small apartment, living room, French doors, one other entry door on the side, a tiny little kitchen, and then the bedroom and one bath. And so I saw this shadow on the door, and I thought, wonder what that is. So I wrapped myself in my blanket. I went to the door. I opened it. I just glanced out. And at the top of it, in big bold letters, it said eviction notice.
Oh no.
I was totally traumatized. And I thought, I can't tell mother because if she gets upset, her condition gets worse. And I thought, oh my gosh, I thought they were going to work with me. I thought they understood my situation. But they didn't understand this. They wanted me out, evidently. Or somebody over the manager said, no, we're not going to let her stay. And so I got the eviction notice and I folded it up real quick and sat down on the sofa. And I was just sitting there in stunned silence for about an hour, just thinking, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We had nowhere to turn. And then the phone rang. I answered the phone, and it was the doctor's office. They had done my yearly checkup, and I went in for that, even though we had very, very little money. I went in for that because I was having some unusual symptoms that I thought something could be wrong. And when they did the exam, he took a biopsy. He said, there's something here, and I'm going to biopsy. It's probably nothing. Don't worry. Of course, I worried. I thought, oh God, what is that? What's going on now? And so they called and they said, we can't give you these results over the phone. Well, when they don't give you the results over the phone, what does that mean? It's not good news, is it?
Yeah.
So I got into my car that sounded like it was washing a load of tennis shoes with no water. Anyway, I made it to the doctor's office. I go in, they lead me back to the doctor's office, his private office. The nurse stays in there and he looks over his little reading glasses and he says, "Well, it's not the news we'd hoped for. You have cancer." I
What
didn't
was
think
your first reaction?
uh, the room went gray and I couldn't really hear any I was hearing bits and pieces of what he was saying, but I was in maximum trauma at this point. I have a very sensitive nervous system, and my hands were shaking, and I was literally traumatized.
Shock. Yeah.
And I told him, I said, "Look, I don't have any insurance. I don't have any insurance. What does that mean? Am I just going to die? Is that it? I mean, what are we going to do?" And he looked at the nurse and he looked back at me and he said, "I'll tell you what I'll do. You come back." I think it was week after next. And I will remove what I can of the tumor. It was about the size of a walnut on my cervix. I will remove what I can. We'll let it heal. I'll biopsy it again and we'll see where we are. And I'll do that in the office. And don't you worry about the money. So I could barely walk out of the doctor's office because I was so shaken by everything that had happened that I could barely function. And I was walking out to the car, and just as I got in the car, it started pouring rain. In Houston, it's tropical. We have deluges. It's not just, like a soaking, beautiful rain like in the rainforest. It's a deluge. And
Cats and
my
dogs.
windshield wipers, huh?
Cats and dogs.
Cats and dogs. And I was in the car and I turned on the windshield wipers, and that rubber part that's on the windshield wipers, it wasn't on the windshield wipers. It was just flopping around. And that metal part that they clipped to was scraping the windshield. And I thought, I have got to get home to mother. I'm going to try to make it. And I was a good ways from the apartment. But I got on the road. I drove really slow with my emergency flashers on. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I was approaching the freeway and I thought, should I get on the freeway? And I thought, well, everybody else is going super slow too because the rain is so bad. It's really hard rain. So I thought, well, I'm gonna chance it. I'm gonna get on the entrance ramp and I'm gonna stay in the right-hand lane and I'm gonna keep my flashers on and I'm gonna go slow so I can see. And I'm crying and I'm just sobbing. So now I can't see because I'm sobbing. And I thought, please, God, what else? What else is going to happen to me? Come on. I can't take anymore. This is it. And about the time I said that, the car blew up.
Oh my
And
God.
now that white smoke that was coming out the tailpipe was coming out from under the hood. And the car quit. Like the engine stopped and I lost power steering and I had no power brakes. All power cut off. So now I'm on the freeway. These big semis are going by and people are honking at me like, get out of the road, you idiot. And I've got the emergency flashers on and I just hard muscled that car to the side of the road. And then I thought it was on fire because smoke was coming out from under the hood. So I got out in the pouring rain in one of my only two outfits I could wear because I'd gotten so fat. which was a long t-shirt and these like spandex leggings that looked like pantyhose. They were holding on for dear life. My thighs had gotten so big. I had this big t-shirt on and I was just soaked to the bone in 2 seconds. Mascara, streaks down my face and my hair just soaking wet and the clothes just soaked to the bone. And that was before cell phones. So that was back when we had payphones, and I thought, I can only think of one number. It was one neighbor, and somehow miraculously, I could remember her number. Back when we could remember numbers, because now we can't, right? And I said, Robin, what's one number in your phone? You go, I don't know. I know how to look it up. And so
I'll send you
anyway,
a letter or a pigeon.
and then I thought, what else? What else? And I was digging for a quarter and I could not find a quarter. I dug in the bottom of my purse and I couldn't find a quarter for the payphone. And so I got out of the car and I looked up to the heavens because I got back in the car because I realized it wasn't on fire, it was just smoking, to dig for the quarter. I got back out of the car. It had slowed down a little bit on the rain, and I looked up to the sky because I'm already soaked anyway. And I said, God, come on. I'm not even going to ask you to fix this, but I really I demand that you tell me why. Because I've been a good girl. I've been a good girl all my life. I gave my life to the Lord when I was 6 years old, and I meant it. I meant it with all my heart. I tried to be the best person I knew how to be. I went to church. I took my mother in. I went through every penny I had. I married that horrible person that slept around on me, and we'll have to talk about narcissists another day. But anyway, I did everything that I knew to do. I've done everything that the best of my ability. I'm not perfect. I know that. But why? Why is this happening to me? And so I got back in the car and somehow I got the idea to look under a floor mat. I found a quarter by a Cheeto under my floor mat. So I take the and I'm thinking, do I call for help or do I just throw myself into traffic and get this over with? Or I saw a tall building. Do I go into the building, crawl to the roof and just jump off? And I thought, well, I can't throw myself into traffic because what if they don't actually kill me and I'm just crippled for life? And then what if I jump off the building? I can't jump off the building. I'm terrified of heights. And then what's going to happen with mother? So I'm thinking all this. I'm telling you, the negativity was overwhelming. It was so dark. Intrusive thoughts, continual intrusive thoughts that were all negative. So I take the quarter, I call the friend. She happens to be running back in because she forgot something at home. I tell her I'm on the side of the Katy Freeway in Houston. She comes to get me because she knows I've got to get back to my mom. And on the way back, she's a fellow Christian, right? So I'm telling her everything that happened and I'm really scared and I don't know what I'm going to do. And she prayed for me and we get back to the house and it quit raining. So I changed into my one other outfit that I could wear out of the wet clothes. And I was going to go out and sit by the pool and just kind of get away from the cigarette smoke for a while. And I could watch the door so mother couldn't escape. Because I didn't know what I was going to do. And I go out there and there's this girl sitting by the pool. And she's all peaceful and everything. She's sitting on a grass mat with her sitting Indian style, with her eyes closed. And
Meditating.
I thought, yeah, she's meditating. She looks so peaceful. And she was a perfect size 6, so I hated her immediately. But anyway, here I am. I look like a beached whale wallowing out. And I thought, I'm just going to sit as far away from her as I can and try not to look her way, because I'm already super unbelievably depressed. And I heard a voice in my head say, go sit by her. And I thought, is that God or is it the other guy with the horns and the tail? I don't know. Which who is talking to me right now? Because I do not want to go sit by the Buddhist. I'm a Christian from the Bible Belt, born and raised in the Baptist church. I was diapered on the pews. I grew up in the church all my life. So anyway, I keep walking. The voice comes back. Go sit by her. And I go, absolutely not. No. Mm-mm. So I kept walking. And then something happened that has never happened to me before. The Lord arrested my feet. Sudden stop. And then he said it again. Go sit by her. So at that point I said, okay, I'll go sit by her, reluctantly, begrudgingly. So I go and I put my towel. She's sitting by the steps to the pool on her little grass mat. And I put my towel down. And I roll up my leggings, my other pair of leggings. And I put my feet in the water and I sit down on my towel. And I'm just kind of sitting there like, okay, now what? I sat by her. Now what? So she cracked her eyes, but only for a second, to look at me like, what are you, a weirdo? This whole pool is out here and you decide to sit by me? And I'm thinking back to her, I'm thinking, no, I'm not a weirdo. Um, God told me to do it. So there, I don't want to be here either. And so then some uncomfortable time went by with me sitting there, her meditating, nobody talking. And then finally she opened her eyes and she goes, so how's your day going? I go, you really want to know? So I told her, I said, well, I woke up to an eviction notice just for kicks and giggles. And then about an hour later, I get a call from the doctor's office letting me know that my biopsy's back and that he can't tell me over the phone. So I go in and I get a cancer diagnosis and I have no medical insurance. And then my car blew up on the Katy freeway and is still sitting there smoldering on the side of the road. How's your day going?
And she's like,
And she looks at me and she goes, when one is in a hole, one should stop digging.
ah, that's a very wise word.
And I thought, there's going to be a hair pulling. How dare her? What are you talking about? That's what I was thinking. And then I said, what did you say? She said, when one is in a hole, one should stop digging. I have some books that will help you understand. And I said, I have my Bible. I understand all I need to understand. It's the only book I need.
Like that.
I'm going in now. Thank you. So
Yeah.
I'm starting to get up, and she goes, wait, wait. How do you know that the Lord didn't send me to answer your question? See, that was the part I didn't tell her. That I asked the Lord to tell me why this was happening to me. So that froze me again. And I thought, okay, Kay, Miss Barty Pants, what if he did send her to answer your question? He works in mysterious ways. He can even use a donkey. So how do you know that he didn't send her? So I said, you say you have some books that'll help me understand? And she goes, yes. So we go up to her apartment. It's upstairs. And she's got this bookshelf that goes from the floor to the ceiling that she had put in. And it is full of books. And then she does this really weird thing. You got to remember, I'm a West Texas farm girl from the Bible Belt, okay? There is no weirdness in my life. And now my life is getting totally weird. So all of a sudden, with all this strange stuff going on, and I'm really discombobulated. So she's going over the bookshelf with her hands. And then she'd stop on a book and she'd pull that one. And then she'd stop on another book and pull that one. And I thought, okay, on the wordometer, this is a 12. Okay, we just don't do the divining with the books. I don't what is happening right now. I didn't say anything. I just took the books. She gave me a pile, and I took them home, and I went inside, and I spread them out on my coffee table. I had a big square coffee table. So I spread them out on the coffee table. I go, I don't know, God, this is getting really weird, and I don't know what to think about all this. If this is really you, then you're going to have to show me which book that I need to read. So I was looking at the coffee table, reading the titles. What was the writings of a yogi? I said, I'm pretty sure not that one. And so then I come across another one, The Power of Positive Thinking.
Getting warmer.
And I thought, that's kind of interesting. So I picked it up and I looked at the back, and it was written by Dr. Norm Pill, who's a minister, a Christian minister. So I said, okay, well, I'll look at this one. So I was just kind of, when you pick up a book, you just kind of thumb through the table of contents, and you might read the back of it, and then you might just open it. Sometimes I just open, just to read whatever I land on. And I opened that book, and right there, it talked about, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, that your thoughts are things, that your thoughts create reality, and that it was biblical, and that it aligned with scripture. As you sow, the thoughts you sow are seeds, and the reality you reap is the harvest of those seeds. And I thought, what seeds have I been sowing? That we were going to run out of money and be homeless, the car was going to break down, that I was going to get cancer, and that I would get super fat. Yeah, I sowed all of those seeds. And then the book implied that if you reversed it, you could sow positive seeds and turn it around. I thought, well, that's interesting. So I picked up another book, and I was just opening and getting one revelation after another. Then I picked up another book, and it said, whatsoever you pray for, believing you receive it. But you have to really believe. You can't sort of hope and you have to consistently sustain the thought that you're going to receive it. Most people pray and forget about it. But when you pray, you need to continually trust that you're going to get an answer to that prayer, and you need to sustain that until it happens. Consistently, like a ticker tape. You don't want any interruptions in that. So I thought, well, what do I need right now? I need the keys to miracles. I need miracles, but I don't know how to walk in miracles, and I need things to happen now, in the now. Just like they did for Jesus. He said we can do the things he did and greater things than those. And I thought, I need to learn how to walk in the miraculous. And I don't care if I never learned this in church. They talked about the scriptures. They memorized the scriptures. They'll preach on the scriptures, but nobody's getting anything out of the scriptures. They're not actually applying the scriptures. Not really. And so you have to apply it with ninja level discipline. Can't be casual about it. That's where most Christians are missing it entirely. That you can't just play with this. So I prayed, whatsoever is a big word, whatsoever you pray for, believing that you receive it. And in another translation of that, believe that you receive it, it was see yourself surrounded by it, see it already done. So I imagine myself walking in the miraculous, and I prayed for the keys, and I would visualize. I spent 3 days in prayer travail, not sleeping, not eating. 3 days whispering under my breath, I trust you. I know it's underway. I know it's coming. I know the keys are on their way. You sent the weird girl by the pool, so I'm open. I don't know how you're going to do it, but I know you're going to give me the keys to the kingdom, the keys to everything, the keys to the miraculous, how to operate, how to operate. I need the operation system, because I can't ask another Christian, because they're sure not walking on water, raising the dead, and turning water into wine. So they're still not there. They're still not doing the things Jesus said we can do. They're still not performing the miracles Jesus said we can do. So how am I going to ask somebody who's not doing it? So I just travailed for 3 days. And then I don't know if you've ever gone without sleep. Well, let me tell you what happens. Because I had never really gone without sleep. But I was in travail, and I thought, I'm going to lock down to this. And when I'd start to get sleepy, I'd get up and I'd pace. To keep myself from going to sleep, I would pace. And I just absolutely ran it through my mind. I trust you, Lord. I trust your word. I know your word is true. I trust you. You said that whatsoever I ask for, if I would just believe, I believe, I believe, I believe. But the first few thousand times that I said, I believe, I knew in my knower that I didn't really believe. I knew it. I was still doubting. I wasn't
Okay.
really believing. And I thought, how do I get past this doubt? Because there's another scripture. If you say to this mountain, be cast into the sea, and do not doubt. In other words, do not doubt. Doubt's not allowed. But believe that what you say will come to pass, and whatever you say will come to pass. And I thought, so my biggest battle right now is overcoming doubt. And in that 3-day travail, with the consistent, constant, travailing repetition, I trust you, Lord. I believe it's happening. I believe that I'm going to have the result. I believe I'm going to walk in the miraculous. After the first few thousand times of repeating that, just in a ticker tape stream, I'm saying it under my breath because I didn't want my mother to hear what I was saying. I started to believe it. It was like a locomotive that started, a steam locomotive that the wheels spin and then they grab the track a little bit.
Yeah, you get in motion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. And I felt it grab. I was like, wait a minute. I'm starting to really actually believe this.
Just like in the Matrix when Morpheus says he starts to believe.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
it. That's
Yeah.
it, Robin. Oh my gosh, I'm going to cry because it started to grab and I started to believe. And then as I kept going, I didn't stop. I kept going. I believed a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until I really broke through the barrier of doubt. Doubt is a barrier, and miracles are on the other side. They're on the other side for everybody. But no one is willing to admit that they're doubting. That there's even the tiniest little shadow of a doubt keeps you from the miracle zone. You can't break through if
Yeah.
there's any doubt. So I was finally breaking through, and then I didn't want to lose my traction, because once you get momentum, you don't want to lose it, right? And I was afraid that if I stopped for a second, that I was going to lose it. So I kept going. I believe, I believe, I believe. Father, I trust you. I trust you. I know your word is true. I know you're not a liar. You cannot lie. You cannot lie. That I know I can trust. This is a foundation. It's a concrete foundation. I can trust it. So I kept going. I kept going. And I picked up some steam. And then I was really expecting and looking, actively looking for the result, looking for the answer, actively looking. I wonder if an angel's going to appear. I wonder if the keys to miracles are going to fall out of the ceiling. I wonder how this is going to happen, but I know it is going to happen. But I'm now looking for how's God going to do it? Not if he's going to do it. Now I'm into how's he going to do it because I know he's going to do it, but I'm wondering how.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after the second night of no sleep, I started recognizing that I was getting mentally unstable, like I couldn't concentrate, and that I kept drifting off into like an awake but asleep state. You're awake but you're asleep.
Yeah, that's the lack of sleep.
Yeah, and almost like delusional, and I thought, oh, I'm dizzy because I hadn't been eating either, and I've been pacing a lot. I probably walked 100 miles. I don't know how far I walked. I was pacing the whole time. And I just thought, well, I'm just going to sit down for just a second. And I drifted. I drifted out. And then the next thing I know, I'm in this really vivid dream. And I just don't dream. I'm not one of those dreamers. I don't remember my dreams. I don't dream. I just am not a dreamer. And so, anyway, in this remarkably vivid dream, I was standing in front of an angel, but I was in another place, and the place was, there were no people around, just me and the angel, and there was a path. And I hadn't looked to my right yet. I'm just looking at the angel. And the angel doesn't say anything to me. I just know that I'm supposed to go with the angel. So then I looked to my right, and there was this winding path, beautiful flowers on both sides of the path. And it went up a hill, and at the top of the hill was this building, and there weren't any other buildings around. It was just a building, a narrow building. I remember looking at it thinking, that's a weird looking building. And it had these really tall doors that went up almost like 3/4 of the building, and it was already a really tall building. So I remember the doors. And then I looked down, and there was someone standing outside of the building by the doors, but it was a good ways away. So the angel and I start going down the path, and as I get closer, I'm thinking, that looks like Jesus by the door. And so as I'm focusing on Jesus, I notice that the angel is no longer beside me. Like he's led me as far as he needed to lead me. And then I would go the rest of the way. And I got there and I'm looking at Jesus. And he was real calm and I wasn't. I was like, wow, it's really him. And he was really serious. And he said, because you have asked and because you have believed, I will give you what you seek. So then, I don't know if we're going in the building or what's going to happen next, but I'm thinking, I hope he's going to open that door because there's no way I'm going to open it. That's a big, heavy door. And he just looked at me and kind of smiled a little bit. And as he was looking at me, we both went forward and we went through the door. And I thought, we just went through a door. That's interesting. And then he said, I am the door. I am the way. I am the truth. I am the light. No one comes to the Father except by me. And so I looked around. Once we were in the building, it was like Snoopy's doghouse. It was very narrow, almost like a book, narrow. But when you got inside, it wasn't narrow at all. You could look to the right as far as you could see bookshelves, to the left as far as you could see bookshelves. And then down the middle was this beautiful, beautiful harvest table out of heavy dark wood. And I remember thinking, wow, what a beautiful table. And it had those kind of chairs that you usually see in a jury box. They're wood and they're like a barrel chair, and the arms are low and the back is low. And they were sitting, it was lined with chairs on both sides, all the way down. And I looked, and the harvest table just went out of sight. There was no end. I couldn't see the end of the harvest table. And then I looked up, and the bookshelves went up into the clouds like there was no roof. And Jesus said, that's not clouds. That's my Father's glory. And then because I've been in church all my life and could do Bible with the best of them, I remembered the cloud by day and the fire by night that led the Israelites across the desert. So I looked up and I said, well, in my thoughts, I said, well, how do I, he says, the information you seek is in the glory. And I thought, well, it was up really high. And I thought, well, how do I get up there? Is there a ladder or something? Or how am I going to get up there? Because the books in the bookshelf were up in the glory. That was knowledge only for the few. Revelations and depth of revelations that were only for the true seekers. Seek and ye shall find.
I
And he
love
said,
that quote. Yeah. Mhm.
you're a seeker, Kay. And I go, well, okay. I was thinking, what happens next? And I said, how do I get up there? And he goes, I have what you seek. So he took me over to the harvest table, and I sat down, he sat down. And without saying another word, he extended his hands to either side of my head. And as soon as his hands were approaching me and coming to the side of my head, I felt like I went from 0 to 1,000,000 miles an hour. There was a rush. I was paralyzed. My body could hardly withstand the pressure
Yeah.
and the force of what was happening. And I did not know what was happening. I did not know what was happening. I just knew something was happening.
He
And
was
I
uploading knowledge.
and it seemed like it was so hard to withstand the force of it that I was kind of thinking, how much more can I take? And he just kept it going. And then finally it stopped, and I opened my eyes and I was back in my apartment. And I thought, what just happened? And I could still feel it when I was now back conscious again, or back in this realm. Or I don't know what, I don't, people are like, well, what do you think happened? I go, I don't know. I'm just telling you the story. You know everything I know now. What do you think happened? I'm not sure. But I do know this. I knew a wealth of knowledge a endless artesian spring wealth of knowledge that I did not know before that encounter. I knew the keys to miracles, and I knew about the kingdom realm that Jesus walked in when he was here, and that he walked in a realm that he called the kingdom that is at hand. Where are your hands? And I knew that the church had primarily focused on another kingdom, which isn't the kingdom that he told us. It is another kingdom, and we are to know about it, but it's not the kingdom that he told us to primarily focus on. And I did find that in the Bible. Go and preach and tell them that the kingdom is at hand. We're to go and preach, and every Christian is commanded to do this. It is a commandment, and a commandment is not a suggestion. You go, you preach, you tell them the kingdom is at hand, you lay hands on the sick, you cast out devils. In other words, you operate in the kingdom. Mm-hmm. And the kingdom is a realm where time and matter is suspended and unlocked down to the molecular level and is free to change, like water to wine, the multiplication of the fishes and the loaves, manna from heaven, water out of a rock. There's an endless supply of resource that's in the vine, which is the Father. He is the vine, and we are a branch. We're a branch. And through Jesus, we become one with the vine. He's the only way, the only acceptable way to the Father to become one and be reunited, reconnected, and reconciled back to the Father. And in that reconciliation, you become one with the Father. Jesus prayed that we would be one with him and therefore one with the Father. That is the journey of every Christian, is the oneness. And in the oneness, the vine has the roots of infinite supply, the well springs of infinite supply. And you're tapped in. It's part of your, I call the glorious inheritance. As a co-heir with Jesus, now that you're reunited and reconciled with the Father, you have that unity with the Father, and you can draw upon his resources legally. There are people that he says, if anybody comes to me anyway but my son, I call them a thief and a robber. It's not like you can't access it. But if you're not going through the purity and holiness and reconciliation and perfection that only Christ offers.
Yeah, you have to walk the path of suffering towards enlightenment. Yeah.
He doesn't want those that don't have the pure heart. It is about a pure heart that would do no harm. Mm-hmm. And a lot of New Age folks that, oh, I don't need Jesus and I'm just becoming Christed myself. Well, that's not the path that the Father gave us. That's the old model of the Israelites purifying themselves through sacrifice and purification in the temple system.
Yeah, by sacrificing to Baal, but that's not God.
And so that purification system is tainted. Yeah. And now it will no longer function because it has been replaced with Christ as the ultimate purification. And only in your purest, perfect state that's been attained through the instructions given to us to be baptized in water and of spirit can we be reconciled to the Father. Now, in my Baptist upbringing, honestly, I was baptized at 6 years old, and I thought, that's it, that's done, that's all there is. I had no idea that there's a baptism of the Holy Spirit and that there's giftings, spiritual. You unlock a treasure trove of spiritual giftings that you're now legally accessing. So when you go through Christ, it's the Father's house. He says what goes. It's like breaking into somebody's mansion saying, I just decided to come in. Well, good for you. You didn't come in with permission. You didn't come in the right way through the right door. You came in, you dug yourself under the foundation or you came down the chimney. You have to, if the Father says do it this way, and He is the Father of all, then you do it His way. I mean, who has the audacity to go, I think I figured out how to do it on my own, you know? Like, what? Are you stupid or something? Better do it His way, clown. It's like crazy. And so anyway, I learned so much in that download, and I'm still getting revelation that comes up and operating in the prophetic and all these giftings I didn't know I had and didn't know you could have. And just, it was just fantastic. So anyway, I took the keys and I said, well, I'm going to take them for a test drive and see what happens when I apply these keys to miracles. Of course, first thing that needs to happen is I need to be healed of cancer. I don't have any medical insurance. So getting into the proper spiritual calibration, I call it the Jesus code. In the
Interesting.
teachings of Jesus, if you follow them with ninja level discipline, and there's a certain order of things, you have to go in the right order or it doesn't work. Okay, so I did everything in the right order, and you have to do it perfectly. Which who has the discipline for that? Everybody wants something for nothing. No, this comes at a price. And it's ninja level. I don't know if you watched Wax On, Wax Off, but it wasn't easy. I mean, you have to go through some motions here. And so the keys are in order, the Jesus code. And I applied it exactly, and I got stuck on some of the steps. It took me longer to, like, for example, you have to clear your heart. Your heart has to be clear. You
In what
cannot
sense?
hang on to any bitterness, any hatred, any of those lower emotions.
Okay. Yeah.
Your heart has to be perfectly pure. Well, I had a lot to forgive. Come to find out there was quite a list, you know, of real forgiveness. Not just, well, I'm just not going to think about it anymore. I'm just going to go on. No, no, no. You have to forgive it. You have to be perfect, pure in your heart. So I had a lot of forgiving to do. Like a lot of people, I was molested as a girl, and then I married this weirdo narcissist, and and just my growing up years, and my sister and all, you just have to forgive people. Well, I let it go. I did. I let it all go. I forgave it all, and I plucked out even the bitter roots. And I had a pathway that the Lord had given me to use that made forgiveness so much easier. A deeper revelation and understanding of why they do it in the first place and how they're trapped in their programming, their matrix, their belief system. They're trapped in that and they're just replaying it, and how their belief systems formed and why they're trapped in that. It made it so easy to let it go, but still it wasn't easy to do it perfectly and really be free and happy, light as air. Forgiveness is very weighty. Unforgiveness is very weighty. It will weight you down. It will block you. It will hinder you. So I got stuck on that one for a while. And then I got to the part where you asked. You have not because you asked not. And I thought, well, growing up in a religious atmosphere, you were taught not to ask for things. You could ask for healing, and you could ask for, blessings. And so I asked for my healing. I asked for my mother to be living on her own, happy and well. And I asked for a new job. And then I got to material things. I asked for a new relationship, asked for friends, a new circle of friends. And I asked for material things. I go, well, should I just ask for, like plain stuff? I mean, what's okay and what isn't okay? So the Lord and I were at that proximity. We were so just in constant communication. There was no delay and no resistance. So I said, what's it okay for me to ask for, Lord? Is it okay for me to ask for nice things? I'd like to have nice things. Is that okay for Christians? He said, my children can have anything they want so long as it doesn't have them. I'm not withholding anything. And then he showed me in the scripture, I will withhold nothing from those who walk in righteousness. He wants his children to have the very, very best. He doesn't want you to have sub-quality. He wants you to have a safe car to drive that will get you there. He wants you to live in a safe and beautiful neighborhood because beauty is part of our inheritance. Beauty and flowers and a safe environment is part of our glorious inheritance. Why would you want less? So he asked me 3 questions. He said, will you ever love it more than me? Anything that you asked me for? I go, no. And I really can say that. I really mean that. A lot of people are like, no. And then when the test comes, they're like, I
Yeah.
really do love it. I don't want to let it go.
And then
And
they
then
choose for Satan to become a
will you ever,
superstar.
will you ever love it more than others? In other words, will you be selfish with what I give you, holding it back for yourself, or will you share it? And I said, I'll share because there's always more. There is infinite supply. There is no end to your supply, and there's no end to what you can ask and get from the Lord. He will give it to you. He will withhold nothing. He just doesn't want it to have you. He doesn't want you to, he doesn't want your successful life or happy life or beautiful life to bring you to ruin or to separate you from him. Because a lot of people will get everything they want and then they forget all about him. Kind of like the lepers, they got healed and only one came back with the courtesy to say thank you.
Hmm. And so, what happened after you asked all these things?
So I said, well, maybe I should ask for things that are really out of reach. Like they're just ridiculous. Just for fun. Just
Hmm.
if, like a scientist doing a test or an experiment.
Yeah.
So I wrote down yacht, a chauffeur driven Rolls Royce, and I would have been happy to just take a ride in one. You know what I mean? I wrote down a ride on the Goodyear blimp because I thought that would be fun. And I wrote down a beautiful home, gate guarded with a live gate guard, 24/7 gate guard for security. Beautiful, in this real high end neighborhood, beautiful landscaping, beautiful people. And that the house would be fully furnished with china and silver and real art because, we got all of our art at Target or, wherever. You don't, real artist and all that kind of thing. It never even crossed my mind. A boutique style closet, a tub I could swim laps in to languish, just luxuriate in, and a huge closet, not a little one. I mean, enormous, like ridiculous. And a fireplace in the master and a sitting area in the master where I could read. Because I love, love, love to read. And I wish I had more time these days to read, but I don't. But anyway, a reading area, reading nook in the master, and custom draperies and power drape draw. Because I thought, you know what? You have arrived when you can 007 it and push a button and open your drapes. I thought that's like the coolest thing I can imagine. And so I was writing, I go, are you sure about this, God? Is this okay? And he goes, I told you, you can have anything that you ask for. So I wrote it all down. And
Flying unicorn.
yeah, and then I wrote down a purple elephant with pink polka dots. Not if that shows up, we're really onto something here, These
That's
keys have
miracles,
been
yeah.
proven keys, no doubt, no question, because other stuff can just happen, happenstance or whatever. So I started applying the keys with absolute discipline. several, several sessions a day of doing those 7 keys. There's 7 in the Jesus code.
Oh, that's
And
interesting. In Hermetic philosophy, there's also 7 principles.
hmm,
Hmm,
I think there's something to that number, but
I think so.
it
Yeah.
ended up being 7. And you have to do them perfectly, and they have to go in an order. You have to do the first key first, or none of the other keys matter. And if you
Yeah,
don't do the first key right, none of the other keys matter.
makes
And
sense.
so, anyway, I did the keys, and the miracles started popping like popcorn. One of the first fun miracles that happened is I was just casually thinking about a pepperoni pizza. And I hadn't eaten because I was giving my mother all the food, and I was not hungry. I was, you know, traumatized by everything that was happening and excited at the same time now. And so I just thought about a pizza, and I thought about how delicious it would be. But if you're in the kingdom that is at hand and you fully unlock the realm, you can just think about something and it will show up. So the pizza, there was a knock at my door. I go to the door. She goes, I ordered this pizza. They gave me 2. It's a 2-for-1 special. I can't eat the other one. Do you want it? And it was hot and fresh, and it was pepperoni pizza, and it was seconds after I imagined eating a pepperoni pizza. The next thing that happened is my neighbors took up a collection without me asking anyone for money. They took up a collection and they paid my back rent, and they paid a rent a month ahead. And they also, so I got a call from the office saying your rent's all paid up, the eviction stopped. And then this girl brought the job ad to my door at 11 o'clock at night. And heaven and earth had arranged it so that I would be up at that time. God gave me a little project to do that He put in my spirit, and I was up doing that project. And she came to my door, gave me the ad. I got the job. It was the perfect job. It was literally perfect. At the same time, my mother got a call from an old friend of hers that tracked us down. She had called my grandparents, and then my grandparents gave them my number, and her name was Wanda. And Wanda had just found out that her husband was a secret pedophile, and she was divorcing him, leaving him, but had never lived on her own. My mother and her had always been best friends. And so she called my mother and said, Barbara, would you like to live with me? Now, how did my mother's situation turn around? Because she was not able to live on her own, and she could live with Wanda instead of me, but I don't think that was going to last. Well, I was watching TV and the cable went out. I guess they want you to pay your bill. But anyway, I had rabbit ears that I put on the back of the TV with a butter knife, and I had some tinfoil on it, and I was trying to tune in the local Houston channels, and I couldn't get any local channels, but I did tune in a channel from out of state. And it was a panel of doctors talking about different types of unusual or rare disorders. And one of them started describing my mother's condition, like he was talking about her. And it was a doctor here in Houston, Dr. Wilmore. And he was a neurologist, and he specialized in treating this condition, and that it was treatable, even after 7 years of being told nothing could be done, with all the finest doctors in Austin, Houston, and Scott and White, and many diagnostic hospitals that we'd gone to. They all said nothing could be done. So I called Dr. Wilmore's office, and he said, and these are those divine alignments, those divine synchronicities that are not happening by accident. He was no longer practicing. He was only seeing his existing patients, no new
Okay.
patients.
And you were one of his existing patients, right?
No.
You were not. Oh.
So I called and I
Mhm.
said, I saw him on TV and my mother has that condition and I need to get in to see him. I'm sorry, hon, he's not seeing any new patients. And I said, well, you tell him that Kay Miller is going to, or Kay is going to come down there. It wasn't Kay Miller at the time, but Kay is going to come down there and hang on his pant leg every day of his life until he sees my mother. And you tell him I'm on the way. And so she said, hold on. And she came back on the line and she goes, if you can be here in an hour, he can see your mother. I didn't have a car. The car had blown up. So I ran out the door. There happened to be a neighbor. I didn't know her. And I said, oh my God, it's a medical emergency, medical emergency. Can you take me and my mother to the medical center downtown? Please, 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 dear God, please take us, take us. We need to go. And she goes, yes, yes. Get in the car, get in the car. So I'm trying to get my mother to go because I'm not telling her anything that's happening with anything that with the Jesus or the faith or anything, because I knew that she wouldn't believe it. And people that don't believe send up negative torpedoes and shoot down your prayers. You can't tell anybody. You've got to
Yeah, it's
keep
like
your private.
jinxing something. Yeah, yeah.
Well, they'll just, their negativity and their doubt can interrupt. And so
Yeah.
anyway, I said, Mother, no, we're going, we're going. She goes, I'm not going to another doctor. I said, get in the car. And I was dragging her. Get in the car. So we get in there. Girl drives us down there. We get into Dr. Wilmore's office. He has her diagnosed in 10 minutes. The medication is like I don't remember exactly how much it was a month, like something we didn't have, like $800 a month or whatever it was. And I was like, oh my God, we don't have the money for the medication. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And the doctor said, hold on. And he went out and he came back in with a giant bag with a year's worth of the medication my mother needed for free. She starts taking it and she's no longer having those spells. What it was is she had temporal lobe epilepsy.
Okay.
That's where they can't see the full body seizure.
Mm-hmm.
That you can't tell that they had one, but yet their mind is scrambled and confused. So we got that, and then she could move in with Wanda. She got adjusted to the medication. Only took a couple of days to get adjusted, and she moved in with her friend Wanda. Now, as part of these keys or this Jesus code, I had to write the vision and make it plain of the end results that I wanted. And I wrote down that my mother will be living with another lady because I didn't want her living by herself. And I wrote down a visualization sequence where I was arriving at the house. There was a brass knocker on the door. I would knock the door. They would let me in and they would be excited, telling me about all the fun things they were doing. And there'd be a little white dog running around and they would offer me a glass of tea. Okay. Well, Mother moved in with Wanda and Wanda helped her get her things and move out. Mother didn't have very many things. And so Wanda helped her get her things and move out. And I got the address and I went over to visit. I walked down the sidewalk. It was a townhome. It had a gold knocker. I knocked on the door. Wanda answered the door. The dog was running around, the little white dog. I go in. She offers me a glass of tea. And they're talking about all the things that they're doing and all the excitement that they're, all the things they're looking forward to doing together and having fun. And my goal was for my mother to be living on her own, happy and well. The tumor that the doctor found, I was taking a shower the day before the surgery and I was toweling off and something fell out on the floor. A piece of tissue. I didn't know if it was a blood clot, but it was a piece of tissue because when I picked it up with the tissue, it had some substance to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, did that tumor just fall out of my body? So I put it in the toilet and I flushed it. And I said, well, when I go to the doctor tomorrow for the surgery, I'm going to have him look before he does anything, because he's going to put me in twilight, which is you're not really under, but you're just kind of deeply relaxed. And then he was going to numb up the area, remove what he could. And I said, before you put me under twilight and do all of that. Oh, by the way, how I got to the doctor's office. They found my car, my neighbor's. I did not know where the car was. I did not want to know where the car was because I didn't want to pay a storage fee or a towing fee. And I thought it was dead. It's a dead car. Let it be wherever it is forever
Push
and
it in the
ever.
ditch. Yeah.
Push it in a hole and bury it. They found my car. It had a blown head gasket, whatever that is, and they fixed it. And I had left the key to the car in it, but I took my house keys and all my other keys, but I left the key to the car in it. So when they found the car, they got it fixed, they paid for everything, and brought my car back to me.
It's incredible.
So I went to the doctor, and the doctor's in a hurry, and he's doing this, you know, for free because he knows I don't have any money. So he's really rushed and he's squeezing me in. And I said, I think the cancer's gone. And he goes, what? No, it doesn't just go away. And, we just got the results back. No, he's thinking I'm delusional or something. And I said, well, something fell out on the floor. And he goes, well, I'm sure it wasn't your tumor. I said, well, would you mind having a look before you put me under twilight? Just a quick little look see under the sheet. And he had this little stool, and he looked at me and goes, I really don't have time for this. But he rolled over and threw the sheet over his head and he goes in, right? And he's down there for a while.
What are you doing there?
I'm like, like how long does it take to look at that? And so then he rolls back and he's looking over his glasses and he goes, you say it fell out on the floor? Did you bring it? And I go, no, I didn't bring it. I flushed it down the toilet. He goes, why would you do that? And I go, why wouldn't I do that? I mean, why would I bring it with me? Would I keep it in the freezer till my appointment or what? I mean, that's just weird. And so he goes, well, it's gone. And I took a biopsy and we're going to wait for that to come back to see if it's all gone, if there's any more abnormal tissue. And so I got the report back and the report was clear. And I've been cancer free for, well, since 1984. You can do the math on that. No cancer.
Beautiful.
So then I go to the job and I'm getting the tour. I'm working in the telemarketing department. And so that was, I thought, well, this could be what's called a stepping stone. Like sometimes you have to go on this stepping stone and then that leads to another stepping stone that leads to a door. Okay, so the path is there and I'm certain of it. But I'm just wondering, dear God, why am I working in a telemarketing department? So I work for this terrible guy. He's got a horrible personality, the personality of a rattlesnake, okay? And they're taking me on the tour of the facility. And in the back bay on a red carpet surrounded by this velvet rope is a Rolls Royce, a black one with camel hides, which is exactly the color I wrote down, black with light interior. And so anyway, I thought, God, that's weird. I've never even been near a Rolls Royce, and now there's a Rolls Royce. So to fast forward, I kept getting these promotions because the guy that hired me to work in the telemarketing, he went on and I'd come up with a new script and I was training the telemarketing department with the new script that was actually working because the one we had wasn't. And so the CEO saw the jump in the numbers and said, what happened? Well, this lady here wrote a new script. And he goes, how would you like to run the telemarketing department? I said, well, it's better than actually doing the telemarketing. So yes, yes, I
Hmm.
will do that. Then after the telemarketing department was doing really good, then the sales department lost the head there, and they'd run ads and needed somebody to interview people and train them. And so I said, well, if you show me what you want me to train them with, I'll do that. So he goes, until we get another head of that department, you're just doing this temporarily. Well, he never got another one, and I ran that department. And we were having so much fun because guess what? I was teaching them the keys. I was teaching them the Jesus code. And they were loving it. And we met every morning before the offices even opened at 7:30. I said, if you get
Hmm.
here at 7:30, I'll teach you more. No one was ever late. They got there at 7:30. I got to teach them until we actually had to go to work. Every day they were there. We had a competitor pull up to get a part that he didn't have, and he was talking to the CEO. He goes, I've never seen employees come into the office at 7:30 and actually be running for the door. What is going on? And he goes, well, I've got good management. She gets them in here, she gets them up and motivated and fired up, and they pray every morning at 7:30. And so then another division of the company opened up, and the CEO put me in charge of that one. And he goes, we're doing really good. We're doing $1 million a year. We're on trend for 1 million. He goes, but we really need to up our game. And so he goes, can you figure out some marketing for us? And I said, what's my budget? He goes, you don't have a budget. There's no money for the marketing. So I
Awesome.
used the keys. I used the Jesus code, and I said, okay, I'm calling forth what we need to elevate our productivity here at the company. And I got a crazy little witty idea, and I went in, I told the CEO, go, what do you think? And he goes, try it. So we did. And the company with that witty idea was part of the path, the very beginning part that we needed to raise the funds and to get us on track for increase. We went from 1 million to 10 million in a year.
Wow.
So now I'm the goose to lay the golden egg.
Yeah.
And he said, I go, I'm running 3 divisions. I know I'm 26 without a college education, but you need to pay me more money. And he said, how much do you want? I go, well, I like this amount, and with bonuses. And he goes, how about if I do this? How about if I do this amount with bonuses and you have unlimited use of the chauffeur driven Rolls Royce on evenings and weekends as an addition?
Yay.
Yeah. And then the home showed up. Remember the home with the private gate guard and fully furnished with silver china Sub-Zero in the kitchen, Viking equipment, microwaves, fireplace, boutique style closet, Calgon take me away tub, big deck, big backyard with a Japanese bridge over a creek in my yard is what I wanted. And I was being delivered home one evening after an evening out for dinner with friends, and the chauffeur walked me to the door because the security guard at the apartment complex had been trying to take me out. And I was very lovely. I was very polite, and I told him, I said, I'm not, I'm seeing someone at this time, and I was, and but he turned psycho. And when the driver walked me up to the door, there was a little blonde doll on my doorstep with red fingernail polish poured all over it and an ice pick through the chest with a note that said, you're next.
What the fuck?
Yes. He went back and told the CEO that your golden goose, your goose that lays the golden eggs, is not safe in those apartments because I was living in apartments trying to save up money,
Hmm.
living, trying to rebuild. And so, anyway, he called me into the office. He goes, you're not going to live there anymore. I go, have a lease. He goes, don't worry. I've got an attorney. We're going to get you out of that. Your life has been threatened with their staff. We're getting you out of your lease and you're going to move into the corporate townhome that I just bought. And uh, I, I had some experience refurbishing because he had also acquired a yacht. And on weekends, I was going down there to refurbish the yacht. And lo and behold, he put me in charge of the yacht project to bring cellular, because it was a cellular company, offshore, because they were now putting the cell towers on the oil rigs. So boaters can now have cell phone, installed in their boats. And so he had acquired a yacht, put me in charge of the yacht. So I rehabbed it. It was a Chris Craft Constellation, 55 feet, wooden collector's yacht. And I completely redid that whole yacht from stem to start. And it was beautiful. And I do mean a showstopper. And we would invite people from the yacht basin, all the yacht clubs, to go on board and use the phone. And we sold a cajillion phones to yachters. So anyway, he bought this townhome and he needed to he was going to buy it as a corporate investment, corporate housing, and he wanted to redo it. And he said, you redid the yacht, so I want you to redo the townhome. Well, in the 80s, the market turned in real estate and he kept it. He just held on to it till the market turned back where he could sell it and make a profit. And I got to live there for 7 years. And I said, well, how much are you going to charge me to live in that townhome? I can't afford it. And I don't want to dip into my savings. And I want to save money. And he goes, what are you paying now? I go, $400 a month, all bills paid. That was back in the 80s. That no longer exists, does it? Maybe in Malaysia. But anyway,
Maybe.
goes, that'll be fine. Just pay me $400 a month, all bills paid. I lived there for 7 years. It had real art. It had the Calgon Take Me Away tub, the boutique style closet, the 24-hour gate guard, lovely landscaping. I walked in there every single day. Private and secure and beautiful. And I redid that. I had that remote control fireplace where I could lay in my bed and turn the fireplace on and off. I had the reading room and the master. I had power drape drawers. And there was a creek in the backyard with a Japanese bridge over it. God needs us to be specific. You have not because you ask not. So if you ask for something really wild and general and you're not real specific, you're not going to get it. But if you're very, very specific and you trust him at his word and you're walking in righteousness, which is part of the keys, he will withhold nothing from you. He will give it to you.
Yeah.
And then the purple elephant with the pink polka dot showed up.
No
And that
way.
was the one that meant the most to me.
How did it show up?
All of my employees, it was my birthday, and all my employees threw me a little party, little cake at the office, and they brought me the little gifts. And I opened all my gifts. And anyway, I got to the last gift. And I pulled the tissue paper out, and I pulled out a stuffed elephant that was purple with pink polka dots. Now, I had told no one,
That was my question. Okay. Yeah.
no one,
Wow.
no one knew that. And I clutched it and dropped to my knees and started praising the Lord for his faithfulness and the truth of his word. And that little elephant meant more to me than anything until my schnauzer completely destroyed it. My dog ripped it to shreds.
God works in mysterious ways, my love.
He really does. He really does. And so I did put all of this Jesus code in a book. It's called The Keys to Everything. And it's on my website, thekeystoeverything.com.
Awesome.
And I prayed with my husband and I said, what can we do, honey, for people that want to purchase this? Well, it's not just a book. You get the book. There's a focus guide, which is part of what you need to apply the Jesus code, exactly
Hmm.
how you're supposed to apply it. The focus guide tells you, guides you through the right process. And then we have daily calls, daily master coach calls that I do every day, 7:30 Central Standard Time. And for people that can't get on the live call, they can get into our archives. We have over 1,500 calls in the archives that they can dial in and listen to while they're driving or working out, or, you know, it's kind of like book on tape, only it's little 15-minute, you know, intense messages and revelations. My husband and I prayed about what to offer your people, especially yours, that would order um, from this viewing through the link that you're going to put down there. And what we're going to do is we are going to fast and pray for everybody that orders through the link for your breakthrough. And that's breakthrough in your health, breakthrough in your prosperity, and breakthrough in your relationships. Now, when we did that with Dorothy Cook, she was living on her daughter's sofa and she was turning 60, and she had tried every business and had failed at everything. That was because she had a failure pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And when we broke it, we broke the stronghold and called forth a breakthrough for her in that area of her life, which was prosperity and success. Dorothy went to work for a company out of Mexico that was also not doing well. They were only doing about $30,000 a month. Brought a new witty idea to the company for how to structure the marketing and how to build a marketing team. And the company went to $1.3 billion in, I think it was 4 years. And Dorothy
Wow.
was making $1 million a month and created 23 other millionaires that were working for that company. You're going to have your breakthrough. We're going to pray for you too, Robin.
Thank you.
I already started
Thank,
praying for you.
thank you, Kay. Thank you. Thank you, butterflies, for watching this. This was an incredible story. I've read many books like, Think and Grow Rich, The Secret. And it's really interesting that the same kind of descriptions you also had with, writing down stuff and really, really believing it, sort of feeling it. And I'm looking forward to the continuation of this conversation. Butterflies, if you enjoyed this video, you can watch the continuation of this conversation with all the questions that I'm going to ask on our platform, thebutterflytribe.ai. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next transformation. Sincerely yours, Robin, like the bird, the voice of sovereignty.